Hello and welcome to another jungle video, and in this one we are going to be taking a look at something that probably a lot of people are doing but not realizing it, and that's high risk, high reward jungling. And yes, when someone dies while doing this kind of playstyle, you might just simply say, well, you were greeting and you probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. However, there is a big difference between a jungler in gold sprinting to steal the enemy blue buff, getting collapsed on 5v1, which we know is greeting, and then measured, tracking, high risk, high reward jungling that when it works out can absolutely annihilate the enemy jungler. But obviously there are big downsides to this kind of playstyle when it doesn't work out. So today I have for you a nice well-rounded game that shows you the pros and cons of playing something that does include a lot of high risk, at the same time how you can thrive on this when the enemy jungler is attempting to do it against you. And with that being said, our sponsor for today's video is FaceCheck. In addition to providing you in-depth statistics about your champions and performance, the app also provides you a special easy-to-use pop-out during champion select. Through this, you can select the right champion and build while drafting, and then push the builds, rune configurations, and spell choices directly to your league client. Get an instant understanding of the weaknesses and strengths of your enemies, such that you might strike them down with the might of Thor. In-game, you will also have deeper statistics that can help you understand your matchup better. If they're ward enough, are they on their main role, and more. Be more prepared for a match than you've ever been with FaceCheck by clicking the link in the description below. And if you are concerned about why the Olaf has one death, let's just rewind about 30 seconds. At the start of the game, it's very important to buy your items, get to your defensive positions, and also understand that this MMR, if you throw your axe out and miss it, the Graves will notify his team, the rest of his team will realize where you are, and they will collapse upon you. If your top lane is just sitting on the tower, relaxing, enjoying his ice cream sundae, you don't want to hang around and give that first blood. Nonetheless, it is done, and Graves has no flash. Fast forward, Graves has to solo his red buff, but it's Graves, so that's not a problem, and the Olaf is getting a leash on his red. The high risk, high reward jungling begins right away. Graves, immediately knowing that he has this sort of mental lead over the enemy jungler, ease over the Baron Pit wall, flies down into the enemy jungle, and starts to take the blue buff. This is a very reminiscent classical invade of the Scuttle Crab meta, avoiding that pixel ward bush just so you don't get detected when you go for the invade. However, his big problem here is that he goes from the blue into the wolves. As we all know, this does not give you level 3. If he had taken the Gromp, it might have given him a little bit of an advantage with what happens next. The Olaf does come up to do his topside camps, obviously a nice full clear for the Olaf. He realizes, hey, my wolves are gone, let me start that scanner up, ping it out. Graves must be here taking my stuff. Jace rotates, Graves has no flash, the mid lane Echo is rotating for the Olaf, he's on the blue side team. And all of a sudden you have what we can only call is a nice high elo fiesta. Yes, the Graves dies to an axe in the face from the Olaf, but the Diana has come up to avenge the deaths of her teammates, the Graves and the Fiora, who did die. Then the Olaf ends up dying, a few other people end up dying, and all that really matters is the Grave respawns, has control of his blue side jungle now. He is 1-1-on-1, and after Olaf respawns, he is 2-2-1. In terms of our high risk, high reward jungling, we can honestly say that wasn't it. The Graves took a big risk invading there in terms of sticking around as long as he did. Had he simply done the blue into the Grump and gotten out, he would have been level 3 and had enough of an advantage to control his red side and blue side jungle while denying the enemy jungle Olaf any sort of experience or camps. It is the League of Denial, and this high risk jungling is centered around keeping experience out of the hands of the enemy jungler by invading with impunity, tracking them, and making sure no matter what happens, you are ahead. The problem is, as you could see, when it doesn't go very well and everyone collapses on you, laners get affected. The enemy laners get fed also, so you have to be very careful about how you go about this. From the Olaf's case, he showcases a very wonderful way of getting around this kind of jungling when it's against you, by getting yourself fed to a level that the Vikings haven't seen in over 1,000 years. Now, as I'm saying that, you're obviously seeing the fact that the Graves went for the Scuttle Crab, has been fighting the Pantheon. He's going in a very aggressive fight. This high risk, high reward jungling isn't only about the counter jungling you do. It's also about your approach to these fights, to these games. You're sort of trying to intimidate the enemy with your aggressiveness, kind of daring them to take you on. Unfortunately for him, the Olaf has had good reactive pathing. He was on the bottom side taking his second tier camps. He sees the fight, he runs on over, and in a low HP tight space fight, Olaf can kind of reign supreme, especially early on. And this fight here will set the tone for the next couple of minutes, maybe even the next 10 minutes of the game. He picks himself up another 2 kills while the Graves just gets himself 1 assist. Graves is then forced to go to the top side when he respawns because he knows he has no blue side camps. The Olaf will be on the dragon and get the crab, which gives him no control. But the main thing is, as I always tell you guys, when you die in these situations, it's not so bad for your experience because it does give you free reign over the other crab. The junglers haven't taken it yet, you know where the enemy is, go take that topside crab. And after that, once again, the high risk comes into play. The goal here, as I said, is insane counter jungling and insane XP denial, and you do it despite the fact you might not have lane priority. Fiora and the Echo on the blue side are in a better position to rotate if you do get caught. Nonetheless, he's in, he's taking the Gromp, he's taking the Wolves. The Olaf had showed up, he threw an axe which gave him a little bit of vision. He sees it, he pings it. Now basically what do you do as the Graves? You've got 3 people getting sucked into your position. If your laners don't come, it's pretty easy to see how this is going to turn out. But that Red Smite comes in absolutely huge. He's able to combat the Olaf, who's down a level, doesn't have a lot of mana. He uses the E to get over the wall to get out of that melee range. The Olaf runs away because the Fiora had cut off the Jace from his rotation. Echo had come in first, ignites the Graves, but because he has been significantly denied from that beginning and the fact that the Diana is winning in that mid lane, the Graves hugs the wall and tries to bait them in. Yes, Olaf picks up a kill on the Jace on the top side, but as soon as they approach, Diana hits her fancy new ability combo and boom goes everyone else. But wait, there is more. Jace is still in the picture. Graves is going back, he runs and he tries to fight the Graves. Diana's still there and there's really not much you can do because, you know, Graves is pretty handy in a 1v1 skirmish. He has that fleet footwork and he picks up a kill. So, when I said high risk, high reward, well, the rewards are 3 kills to 1 on a very bad invade. Now, obviously, he's dependent here on his laners helping you out. In your lower MMRs, you're not going to be in the situation, but at the same time, you're not going to have 3 people collapse on you all the time every game. If you're telling me that's the case, I can guarantee you, you are lying. The fact of the matter is, even though he doesn't have the kill score that the Olaf has, he is ahead in experience and his CS is almost double at this point. He's absolutely stifling the Olaf and making it very difficult for him to hit level 6 and sort of run with the fact that he has so much gold and so many kills. And that's kind of the best thing you can hope for in this situation if you are Graves. And later on in the week we will have a video coming out how to deal with this situation when you have a bad start or when you're behind slightly. What approaches should you take as a jungler, so don't forget to stay tuned for that. Now, if you think this was going to stop, you are sorely mistaken. The Graves takes his red, takes his raptors, collapses and kills the Echo again in the mid lane, who's not having a very fun game whatsoever, and immediately goes and steals the Olaf's blue again. The Olaf will not get a blue this game, that's the goal of the Graves here. And the risk part is the fact that eventually there's going to be vision, they're going to collapse and set traps. But unfortunately for the Olaf, he's having to play a much different game. But that's actually okay because of the fact that his mid is dying so much and he's rotating to these skirmishes and getting these kills, he is still relevant. As such, he finally gets his ultimate, he picks off the Diana, gets that shutdown gold. The Grave rotates to try do something about it, but sadly he gets 3v1'd and there unfortunately is the downside. Eventually people are gonna get sick of your stuff and, kill you. You know, the reason I like this game is because it shows you how you can get leads by simply farming the enemy's jungle instead of your own, falling back to your own, and that's really easy when you farm as fast as Graves does and can actually duel most junglers. But the thing is, it really does force the enemy jungler into a very one-dimensional playstyle. If he can't farm his jungle and he can't farm your jungle, that means he's really free to rotate to any and all skirmishes, he's free to get ganks off whenever he can, and when things go badly for you, he gets a herald like he just did. Now you go bottom lane, you take your whole blue side jungle, you know the Olaf was on the herald, so you think, hey, I'm Graves, let me go and invade his red buff. That isn't up, that's quite unfortunate. Let me go gank bottom lane. Remember, the best part about counter jungling is those nice ganking angles you can get off on all those side lanes. However, once again, the Olaf has showed up, the Jace is TP'd in, the Echo rotates, the Graves only gets 2 assists, and because of that herald, a whole bunch of tower plates for the blue team. Olaf gets to have the dragon once again. Objective control is his, ganking control is his, skirmish control is of course his. And so hopefully you can get a very clear picture of what the downside can be when you're counter jungling and invading and playing so aggressively as this Graves is. If you're looking for measured ways of doing that, the last video we did on Thursday, that's good to look at. However, his advantage here isn't quite apparent. Look at the CS score. It is much closer than it has been, however, that's going to be something you're going to watch for the rest of the game. It will get increasingly bigger, the gap will become so huge that the gold amounts will really negate any sort of kill differential, and the fact that Graves is still very strong in his own right. Graves continues counter jungling, forcing the Olaf to take fights, which will get increasingly worse as the game goes on. Here he dies in a 1v1. The Graves is able to pick up a kill on the Echo, so, getting something back himself. The big shift here needs to happen around objective play and around skirmish play. Obviously, the next thing that will lead us in this situation is that third dragon. So the Graves now can really fast clear very, very quickly. The Olaf is still going to be looking to remain relevant through these skirmishes and picks he can get. But unfortunately for the Graves team, the Diana goes a little bit too aggressive. They get collapsed and she dies. The dragon is kind of just spawning, so it's not really the best situation. You want to kind of maintain vision control, set up a fight that's really good for your team, and that really wasn't it. However, great dragon protocol we can address here. If you're looking at how you should be setting up dragons to make sure you can 100% secure those throughout the game, I did a video with Mobalytics last week on this actually, but you see here the Graves is still alive. He's still able to survive. The Pantheon goes ahead and tries to zone him, which is good. That's what he should do. Unfortunately, you know, it's Pantheon support and it's a Graves jungler who is kind of level 11. And no one helped protect the jungler. The Olaf's team should have turned off. He got stuck in a Veigar stun and then goodbye. Because we all know how that works. Very, very nice damage from that tiny guy. Totally. I love it. And Fiora has TP'd in and picks up that steal. So when you have split focus like that as the blue team, that's not very good. You're most likely going to lose the dragon when you have split focus. You need to be unified in your approach to that. And then the Graves doesn't stop. Most of you would fall back. Graves says no, high risk, high reward. I go for everything all the time, no matter what. Into the enemy jungle he goes. And then we can jump in time to the second Herald spawn. And then you see the thing is your aggressiveness, your risk taking needs to have a small chance of actual good payoff. So yes, you just killed the Pantheon. Yes, your farm is fantastic. Yes, you counter jungled more than the guy's ever seen in his life, but I don't think you should be going into melee range trying to fight him 1v1. Now 2v1. Now you're dead. The high risk playstyle now isn't so much in your counter jungling and your invading and so on. It's more about how you take these fights and how you go in to get those picks. And this Graves is actually going to end up costing his team because he's overestimating the amount of damage he can do. He's overestimating what he can do by himself. You do actually have to play around your team every now and then, and a more measured approach can give you objectives a bit better than just going ham-fisted all the time. And we have evidence for this. Literally, 2 heralds and 2 dragons were lost because of over-aggressive fights and greeting in situations where you could have played a bit more attention to the map, to your tracking, and to your vision control. The rewards were not worth the risk. When the Graves got 3 kills for his team on that blue buff invade, yes it was. When he gets in and out with the counter jungling, denying that experience from the Olaf, yes, it is worth it. He's had a good example of both. It's just the problem is the objective losses and the kill losses stick out way more than the victories of your counter jungling and the victories of your invade. If the Olaf hadn't managed to get any of those kills, he didn't get rewarded those objectives, he wasn't able to pick anything off from the Graves' aggressive moves, he would be 3 levels down and the game probably would have ended at 22 minutes. But the Olaf did a nice job of picking up those kills, of rotating, of securing the objectives, and he deserves credit despite a lot of pressure in his face for delivering a good performance. Look at the Graves again here, invading, looking to make a pick, not really considering vision where the whole enemy team will be. He dies, and he ends up giving them Baron. This is what I'm talking about. Your risk needs to be measured, the rewards need to be weighed. However, as with all things, nothing is obvious. They almost push for the win on that Baron. However, the Graves spawns in time, the Veigar is there, they're able to pick up a kill, stop the push, and this is where things go a little bit, well, in the complete opposite direction that you might actually think they were going to. Sometimes your investments are long term. They managed to pick up a dragon earlier, that was absolutely huge. And now the ambition outweighs the talent of the blue team, chasing down a little bit of a kill around that crucial dragon. There's Diana, there's Graves, there's Veigar, and there's your teamfight win. That is a catalyst that turns the game around. Sometimes you have to factor in, when you go for these risk rewards, who scales better. If you are a very, very good scaling team, losing these things in the early to mid game isn't exactly the end of the world, because come time for this team fight at this stage of the game, you will most likely win if you hit a good wombo combo. And I kinda guess it's a bit of a letdown because now, you know, the Graves is able to farm that wave, take his whole jungle, get those item spikes. Because you have a super wave pushing into your base, everyone gets a little bit of that juice. One messy team fight outside their base later, and they are able to secure Baron and basically just push the win. The game turned because of one fight at a dragon and because they spawned just before the Olaf's team could win on the first dragon that they secured. Olaf having all the kills isn't exactly the best way to go about it, but on his itemization terms, don't go for the Sterix there, go for the GA, survive those fights, and just push to win before it gets to this level. I do not agree with that kind of itemization when you are looking to end the game quickly. But there you have it. Invades, counter jungling, and so on can pay off hugely when the enemy doesn't get kills, but when they do, you kind of end up in a net neutral situation, but the long con will help you out. Given the experience differential you have through those farming mechanics, just please be aware, do not give away too many skirmishes and too many objectives because of your greed. And yes, it becomes greed when the reward isn't really there and you're just trying to be aggressive. Hopefully you found the game somewhat entertaining. I found it kind of fun and a bit of a fiesta, but I think with a very nice plot twist at the end, and that's always fun. If you're gonna play like the Graves, make sure you weigh the rewards on your mind when you're doing those things, and of course try and ward up and rotate to fights when the Olaf is forced to gank. Don't let him be the one rotating to low HP fights, because you're gonna end up giving away those leads you're gaining from these plays you're making. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something. Please do like, share, and comment if you did. It really helps the channel. We always like to get around 1,000 likes. Please subscribe for more Season 10 jungle videos coming very soon. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.